You think preparedness is about gear, about stacking supplies, ticking boxes, feeling responsible. But here's the part nobody warns you about. Some purchases don't just ship to your door, they quietly change how systems see you. Not because you're doing anything illegal, not because you're dangerous, but because modern monitoring doesn't care about intent. It cares about patterns. And patterns are what algorithms eat for breakfast. Listen closely, because this isn't a conspiracy rant. This is how compliance systems, regulatory databases, and automated risk scoring actually work. Every large society runs on filters. Financial filters, logistics filters, communication filters. And those filters exist to spot anomalies, not criminals, just outliers. The moment your buying behavior stops looking average, you move from invisible to interesting. Not watched like in a movie, but logged, correlated, and scored. And that's where the prepper blacklist idea really comes from. Start with optics. Night vision, thermal devices, advanced surveillance tools. These aren't evil objects. They're regulated because of military and export control frameworks that date back decades. When you buy them, you're not flagged as a threat. You're flagged as a data point that now belongs to a category, controlled technology purchaser. That category exists because governments are legally required to track where certain capabilities go. The system doesn't ask why you want them. It only records that you do. That's the first domino. Fuel storage is another quiet trigger. Large capacity fuel containers, generators beyond household norms, bulk stabilizers. On their own, harmless. But fuel is classified as strategic infrastructure in emergency planning doctrine. During disasters, fuel isn't treated like groceries, it's treated like mobility, power, and control. So purchases above normal consumer thresholds get tagged, not seized instantly, just marked. Because in every historical emergency, fuel determines who can move and who can't. Medical supplies catch people off guard the most. Antibiotics, trauma kits, surgical tools. You think you're being smart. The system sees someone acquiring capabilities normally centralized in hospitals. Again, not illegal. But medical stockpiling intersects with public health monitoring, counterfeit prevention, and controlled distribution laws. Large or unusual orders create friction, because medicine is one of the first things governments re-centralize in crises. Not out of malice, out of triage logic. Encrypted radios are where psychology really kicks in. To you, they mean privacy and resilience. To monitoring frameworks, they mean loss of visibility. Systems fear what they can't see, not because it's dangerous, but because it breaks predictability. Secure communications aren't flagged as weapons. They're flagged as uncertainty, and uncertainty is the enemy of bureaucratic control. This section is based on practical field survival experience, rather than formal academic sources. Water filtration at scale is another sleeper. A Brita doesn't matter, neither does a camping filter. But systems designed to support dozens or hundreds of people cross a line from personal preparedness into infrastructure replacement. Emergency management doctrine assumes centralized water control. Anything that bypasses that model becomes a planning variable, and planning variables get tracked. Body armor and tactical gear carry a stigma that has nothing to do with crime and everything to do with optics. Defensive equipment reads as intent, not violent intent, but anticipatory intent. You're preparing for instability before it's officially acknowledged. Historically, institutions don't like being second to recognize danger, so they pay attention to people who prepare early. Ammunition and reloading supplies are the most misunderstood. Every legal purchase is already logged through commercial systems. What changes perception isn't buying ammo, it's buying a lot. Consistently. Methodically. That pattern suggests long-term planning. Algorithms love long-term planning because it's statistically rare in consumer behavior. Rare doesn't mean wrong. It just means visible. Drones sit at the intersection of control and anxiety. Airspace, observation, autonomy. Drones remove the monopoly on perspective. That's why they're regulated, geofenced, and tracked. Owning one doesn't matter. Modifying, upgrading, or buying multiples shifts you into another category entirely. Seeds and farming equipment feel wholesome, almost innocent. But food independence is power. Always has been. Systems built on distribution don't love self-sufficiency at scale because it complicates forecasting. When enough people step outside the grid loses relevance. History shows this over and over. This section is based on practical field survival experience rather than formal academic sources. And then there's precious metals. Gold and silver aren't about prepping fantasies, they're about memory. Governments remember liquidity crises. They remember capital flight. They remember 1933, not because it was evil, but because it was effective under their logic. Buying metals doesn't make you an enemy. It makes you a reminder that trust in currency is conditional. Here's the real takeaway, and this is important. The blacklist isn't a list. It's a gradient, a probability curve, a quiet shift from background noise to foreground signal. Most people never cross it, because most people don't prepare deeply, consistently, or intentionally. Prepping isn't dangerous. Silence isn't illegal. Awareness isn't paranoia. But modern preparedness requires understanding something older generations didn't have to face: automated attention. The skill that matters most now isn't stockpiling. It's operational humility. Blending in. Staying boring. Not because you're afraid, but because attention is a resource you don't want to spend. Because in the end, survival isn't about what you own. It's about how visible you are when systems start paying attention. Please stay connected. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment to Psych Logic Dose.